Today I want to talk to you about an idea that is so important, and I've been using it for so long. I actually have forgotten where the basic idea came from. I think it might actually be Stephen Covey. His 7 Habits is, I think, such foundational work. It's going to show up in lots of different things that we talk about in this channel, and it shows up even in hidden ways in my work, and probably also through this channel as well. But the thing I want to talk about today is we're going to start with the circle of control, and it's just that simple. Just the idea that you have control of your own life. Now, obviously not 100% of your life, but the vast majority of your life is within your control. Even when events take place that are not in your control, you have the fundamental ability to respond to those events through your attitudes, through your actions, what you do, what you don't do, all kinds of things. This also echoes some of Viktor Frankl's work in logotherapy, and it's extremely, extremely important. And this is the case, I think, with lots of ideas, that some of the most powerful ideas are also so dramatically simple, it's hard to talk about them even more than just to kind of say it. I mean, basically it's a sentence. It's 2 sentences to tell you that information. But as the graphic shows, the very center is your circle of control. And as I said, fundamentally, that's you. For parents, we might confuse ourselves sometimes and think that we have control over our children. Maybe there are small pockets in time where we actually have control over our children when they're younger, not when they're absolutely infants, because we don't have control over them then, not by the time they're toddlers, because we don't have control of them then either. But maybe there's a little bit of time in between where we have control. But essentially, control can only be exercised on yourself. That is it, okay? Then we have the next circle out is the circle of influence. It's also really important for you to recognize that it is the circle of influence. So you are not limited only to the control that you can exert on yourself, but you can also influence, impact other people. But this is the interesting thing, I think, is that the circle of influence is only those who have consented to be in your circle of influence. You cannot affect someone who does not agree in some manner to accept that influence. Now, if you are living in the same home, if you spend a lot of time with someone, you interact with someone repeatedly, it would be very difficult not to have a circle of influence, a mutual circle of influence, but it really is about that person's choice. What that kind of means is that no matter what anyone else does, you don't have to, you are not required to respond in any particular way. You have the ability, again, to control yourself. Influences can be more and less difficult to fight against or to accept or disregard or whatever, but it remains fundamentally within your decision making whether or not you will be influenced. And you could be in the circle of influence for someone, and that person might not be in your circle of influence, right? Because those are individual decisions, although usually if you are in someone's circle of influence, that person will also be in your own. Okay, so that's the circle of influence, really important for you to understand. Then there is maybe what we call the circle of concern. The circle of concern is things that matter to us. Probably they're distant to us in location. Maybe they're distant to us in time. Maybe, some people might argue that there is nothing that you can do about those. I'm still playing with that idea. And so the last part of the image that you see is what I call the cone of responsibility, right? And so again, this is just an idea that I'm working through, but it is this idea that you are totally responsible for the circle of control. You have some responsibility within the circle of influence because what you do affects other people, whether you mean it to or not. It's about their choices, okay? But you still have responsibility there. And then I think you probably in some manner, and I'm still working this out, have some responsibility in the circle of concern. So recognizing what is within control, influence, and concern, I think is a step towards being more effective, probably being happier and more successful as well. And I think it would be good for you to reflect on how much you live in your life that way. Like, are you really recognizing what is control and what is influence? you getting those kinds of mixed up sometimes, because that's kind of a recipe for unhappiness and frustration.